The NRL makes its return this week with round one just around the corner, a couple days away, and I am so excited. And if you guys are too, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because there's plenty more rugby league content coming your way. But today, we're going to talk about one player that every single club wishes they still had on their roster. We're going to set a couple ground rules before we get started. Now, the rules are the player must be currently active in the NRL, otherwise we'll just be chucking immortals in every single team. You can't. I'm not going to use the same player twice. Now, it's like sort of seems a bit silly, but it just keeps the video a bit more interesting and makes me think a bit harder. And the players can have played juniors for the club, because a couple of clubs here where there's not really any players that you want to put back in, but there's some juniors in that they wish they hadn't have lost. So we're going to start with Manly. Now this player, I think the club that he's just left as well would love to have them back, but Api Koroisau for me, Manly would be killing it if he was there. They probably would have made the finals last year. Would have done a hell of a lot better in 2021. Would have got close to the grand final. You see the impact he made as soon as he went to the Panthers. Their whole team just changed. Like, he's unbelievable. I think one of the best things about Koroisau is just his organisational skills and like the ability to take pressure off halfbacks and also just punish teams around the ruck when they're becoming lazy and getting tired. I think, unfortunately for Manly, they let him go because they had Manasi Fainu coming through, and then obviously everything happened with him with his court case and that sort of thing. So he's no longer there, but Manly would be in a lot different position now, I believe, if Api Koroisau had stayed, and that's why, for me, their player they wish was still there is Api Koroisau. Now, over to the Brisbane Broncos. Now, I think there's probably a few different candidates for the Broncos here, but I've gone for a guy that would give them a lot of strike on an edge and would honestly take their attack to the next level. David Fifita, he was there when the club was struggling a little bit. I think they won a wooden spoon when he was there, but man, Fifita, like in this day and age, playing off Adam Reynolds would be phenomenal. It would be such a really good, such a great thing to see. Keeping him and Haas and just keeping Broncos juniors there would be pretty cool. Moving on to the Canberra Raiders. Now, this was hard because I don't think there's that many big names or anything that sort of leave Canberra or go to Canberra. They're sort of a team that's sort of built around a system and like a lot of above average players, obviously coming together for working towards a cause. But the player that I've got is a player who's just signed for an NRL club and has come back over to Australia. That's John Bateman. I think, look, Adam Elliott's aging out. Not Adam Elliott, Elliott Whitehead. He's like, what, 31, 32 maybe, I think I've seen. Like, he's a lot older than I thought. And John Bateman, I suppose he's probably only a couple of years younger, but at least there's a couple of years extra there for him. But then in saying that, like, with John Bateman gone, Hudson Young's been able to really develop his game a lot better, but and become one of the most underrated players probably in the competition. But yeah, Johnny Bateman, I think, like, he's just he's got the X factor, the player that can make something out of absolutely nothing, and I think that's why the Raiders sort of lack that a little bit, and a punch to get them to accelerate, like, to continue their growth as a club. And I think having John Bateman there would definitely benefit them. I think it benefit most clubs in the competition, to be honest. Move on to the Doggies. Now, this one, I forgot this bloke even played for the Dogs, but what they need, like, their squad this season is pretty good. I will say that. They've got a good four-pack, a decent backline, but they're lacking maybe one or two players, probably a front rower, or just a leader in that four-pack. And that's where a guy by the name of Dale Finucane comes into play. I completely forgot that he even played for the Doggies. Imagine him there with, you got Tavita Pangai Jr., Viliame Kikau, Luke Thompson. Like, imagine him being a mentor to Franklin Pele. And because he's the kind of player that I think just like, he has in him what the Dogs are trying to instill in their culture these days. Like, a really hard, just tough, like, backs against the wall, we're the underdogs kind of player. Like, I don't know, Dale Finucane never does anything flashy, but God, I'd hate to play against him and love to play with him. He just gets to do so much work, and then shit work too that no one else wants to do, like just tough carries, a lot of tough tackles, and I think you can always rely on him to be there for you, and I think that's definitely a very good attribute of his, and the Dogs would love to have Dale Finucane on their roster these days. And we'll move over to Dale Finucane's current club, the Cronulla Sharks, and we're going to take Valentine Holmes, because what club would not want Valentine Holmes? You think, stick him on an edge in the centres, or actually even put him at fullback. Like Will Kennedy, as much as I like him as a player, Valentine Holmes is obviously a higher quality footballer. They'll probably be getting close to winning comps if Valentine Holmes was in this team. Like, with a spine of Valentine Holmes and Nico Hines as your 1 and your 7, you're looking pretty good. So yeah, for me, like, I think Sharks fans as well, like, he went off to chase a dream. I don't think the Sharks fans hold a grudge against him at all. I think they would love to have him back yeah, at Cronulla. Now over to the Titans, to a player that the fans might actually have a grudge against. I'm not too sure. You'd have to let me know. But I've got Jai Arrow. I think if you put him at 13 in this team, their full pack looks stacked. So you'd have a front row of Tino and Fodawaker, back row of Fermor and Fafita with Arrow at lock. That is a formidable full pack. And then Vera was playing off the back of that. Man, like that's exciting for me as a Dragons fan listening to that. Man, Jai Arrow is probably honestly gone down to South becoming a bit underrated because he's on an edge and his best attributes aren't being used. I think his work rate's probably like his work ethic, just the fact he makes 1,000 tackles a game and makes so many hit ups. I think again, like is a player like Dalfin doesn't do the flashy stuff, but just gets through so much work. And I think while he's still he's quite effective, and I think he's gonna have a really good year on Rabbitoh's edge. It's just I'd love to see him back at 13. And I think the Titans, he was with the Titans through such shit time, so it'd be good to see him there now, like while they're going okay and have a decent, a lot better roster. So yeah, that's a Jai Arrow back to the Titans for me. Now over to the new club, the Dolphins. Now this is one of the clubs where you're gonna have to bring a junior in because obviously they've had no players play for them just yet. And the guy that I'm bringing in, there's a few players that have actually played for the Dolphins that you might not have known, but I'm going to say Tony Staggs. He's got that X factor, that star power that the Dolphins are looking for at the moment. Have him on an edge, play him at 6, whatever. I think Tony Staggs would be really, really good for the Dolphins and attract some fans into there for sure and just get eyeballs on them. That's what they're trying to do at the moment. So I think Tony Staggs with the Dolphins would be really good. Now over to the Storm. This one's tricky because not many players leave the Storm and actually improve because of the system and the coaching and stuff. You don't really get that anywhere else in the comp. We'll probably see it with Brandon Smith, but that's because the Roosters are another team that is just incredible with that kind of stuff. The guy I've got though, Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, I think actually he'd be a perfect signing for the Storm at the moment. They're down on forwards, down on troops. They've lost so much experience. He's already a premiership winner and he's still, 22, 23 maybe this year. I think put him in either front row or lock for that team. He'd absolutely excel. He's one of those players that he's gone on to become probably a better player now, even at the Titans. So imagine what he'd be doing now in the Storm system if he was still there. So yeah, for me, Tino at the Storm, I'd love to see it again, especially in this team now. Having Pappy and Munster and all those sort of guys, which I played with him before. Tino's levels above now where he was when he was playing for the Storm, so I'd be so excited to see how good he would be if he stayed there. We'll move over to the Warriors. Now, this is a player who was terrible at the Warriors, to be honest. Could barely crack reserve grade for a stage of for a period of time there, but has since become one of the biggest names in rugby league. Isaiah Papali'i. If he was coached right over in New Zealand, I'm not sure what the problem was when he was over playing for the Warriors, but if he was coached properly and it was in a Warriors system that I suppose had some changes and was a bit better, Papali'i would be so good over there. I think now his mindset and attitude towards rugby league has changed. I'm still a little bit worried about him at the Tigers this season, to be honest, but I don't know. I think he'd be a lot better for the Warriors if he was back there now. If he went back, maybe next contract he can go back and repay their faith and that sort of thing. But yeah, for me, probably he's a lot more mature player, so I think he'd actually excel over at the Warriors now. Now the Knights, this one, man, it still to this day seems so silly why they got rid of him. Connor Watson, a ball playing 13 was exactly what you needed last year, and a guy that can cover a couple of positions. He's the perfect 14, but I think he'd be really good at 13, especially in that Knights system. Especially now they got Adam Elliott. The necessity for Connor Watson still isn't really there, but man, I can't believe they let him go just for the culture aspect as well. All the boys absolutely loved him. Your star player is his best mate. What are you doing, Newcastle? I think a lot of, and most Knights fans, they loved seeing their two probably their best players get along, be best mates, that sort of thing. And the content they were pushing out was really, really good. I think a lot of Knights fans would love to have Connor Watson back in Newcastle, and that's why he is my player that they wish they still had. Moving over to the Cowboys though, just another. Oh no, he did play first grade for him. Connor Watson's best mate, Kalen Ponga. Imagine Kalen Ponga in this Cowboys team. Whether you have him at fullback instead of Drinkwater, or even look, it is a crazy idea, but have him floating around the ruck as a 13 or as a centre, I just reckon in this team under Todd Payton, that flair, that X factor would be so good to watch. Kalen Ponga is one of my favourite players to watch when he's on. I think it's one of everyone's favourite players to watch when he's on, just because he has that flair and that tech. just the ability to create something out of nothing, I think, up in the Cowboys would be create some really exciting footy. Over to the Eels again. This is the player that I like the Knights. I can't believe they actually got rid of. It's just they've probably shortened their premiership window to this season, and that is it by getting rid of this guy. Reid Marnie, man, what a freak of a player! I think he's probably one of the most underrated guys getting around. I'm surprised he hasn't played Origin just yet. I suppose you've got Harry Grant and Ben Hunt in front of him for those roles, but still, Reid Marnie is an absolute dog, and he'll get through so much work. He's only little, and he'll tackle absolutely anything. Good service out of dummy half, although sometimes it's a bit questionable how backwards those passes are, but still, Reid Marnie, fantastic player and a huge loss to the Eels, and I'm sure they'd love to have him in their squad. Josh Hodson's obviously like a fairly handy replacement, but still, he's not Reid Marnie. Now over the Panthers, another guy that they've just lost, and this one's supposed to, like, a lot of salary cap pressure, because you can't, like, that's the beauty of the salary cap. You can't have the same incredible like premiership winning roster for a million years in a row. And that's good. For me, the player that I'm going to be talking about is Viliami Kikau. I'm sure they'd love to have him back there on that left edge. It was just working so well. I think with Kikau is he can either run a hard line to go straight through your halfback's inside shoulder, or he can play a little ball out to Tungo and May and that sort of thing. Like, he's like just so skillful, so silky, like, and he moves so well for a big man. It's absolutely outrageous how good he is. I think he's going to kill it at the Dogs. But for me, yeah, I'm sure the Panthers would love to have kept Viliami Kikau on their roster. Now I go to the Rabbitohs. This is another play. I've had to pick a junior here. I couldn't really see anyone that just like would slot into that team that they'd love to have there. And it's been in the news that they want him back lately anyway. So we're going to be taking Joseph Suaalii, parking him on that right wing. It's probably the one spot for the Rabbitohs at the moment that they're like, Isaac Thompson's a good player. Tane Milne, like, he's decent, but imagine having Joseph Suaalii on that right wing. Their team would be so formidable. You can honestly even switch him and Latrell out and like fullback Stenner kind of thing. Like, man, the things you could do with Suaalii in that team are so exciting, and I think they'd absolutely love to have him there. I mean, obviously they can't afford him. Not many clubs could. But yeah, I think Joseph Suaalii to the Rabbitohs would be like crazy to see. It'd be pretty funny if he actually went back there. I don't think he will. I think that's something that will ever happen. I think the Rabbitohs have definitely lost him. He feels like a rooster now, but man, Joseph Suaalii at the Rabbitohs would be sick. Now over to the Dragons, right? We are filling a massive hole in our roster with this player, and it's someone that we should never, ever have let go. Reece Robson. Now, this one still stings me to my core. The fact we let him go so that we could keep Cameron McInnes, and then he went to the Sharks the next year. Should have just stuck by him, and like, I don't know, man. He's so good. I think he'll nearly become New South Wales hooker this season, because I can see a couple of players ahead of him dropping off. He would just get solve so many of our problems at the Dragons, and that's what sort of just annoys me so much about it. He's such a good player. We had him in our palms, ready right in the wings. We had huge raps on him, and then we let him go to get a better opportunity, and look how good he's going. Yeah, we'll move on. Now, over to the Roosters now. Latrell Mitchell in that team would be pretty gnarly. Like that. I think their backline is lacking just one player. Obviously, Dom Young's coming in, but I think that's because Tupou's going to go. So I think if you still had Latrell there in the centres, man, they would have probably won another comp since then. Like, even in that year they had that many injuries, Latrell's that kind of player who can just win a game by himself. I mean, we saw what happened when the Roosters had Latrell. They won 2 comps. Now, I'm not saying that's all Latrell's doing, obviously. Like, they had an insane roster, but it definitely helped. Now, lastly, go to the Tigers. Yeah, this one you can have an abundance of players. They throw away so many good players that go on and do incredible things, but the one, it's very, very obvious. James Tedesco. Look, whether it's in this Titans team that's struggling or not, I don't know whether he would have achieved the heights that he has at the Tigers, but he still would have been a hell of a lot better than a lot of players have had there in recent years. And I don't think there's any arguing that. So there is my players that your club wish they still had there. Let me know. Comment down below any players that you wish were still there. But yeah, how good. Footy's back this weekend. Let's go. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.